Welcome to Chronicles and Legends. Please hit that subscribe and let us know where in the world are you tuning in from. Let's get started. Chapter 1. The Howl Beneath the Pines, the Wendigo Awakens. In the far northern wilderness, where winter rules with teeth of ice, and time itself feels forgotten, there lies a forest older than memory. Pines stand like silent sentinels, their limbs crooked from centuries of storm and frost. The wind here doesn't whistle, it wails, like mourning spirits drifting through a world that forgot them. This is no ordinary woodland. It is sacred, feared, and whispered about in the stories of the Algonquian peoples Cree, the Ojibwe, the Innu, and others, whose ancestors walked this land long before maps gave it names. Here, in the deepest parts, where no sunlight dares linger, the Wendigo was born, not born as we are not from flesh or womb or breath. No, the Wendigo was summoned. It began not with a roar, but a whisper, a shiver through the trees, a tale passed, around crackling fires, too dangerous to speak aloud. The name itself was avoided, for fear that to utter it would invite it near. Wendigo, Windigo, Witigo, the devourer of men, the spirit of starvation, a force that does not live, it hungers. Long ago, so long that even the ancestors' ancestors only speak of it in fragments, the earth was locked in a bitter winter. The snow was endless, the wind peeled skin from bone. Families clung to each other in their lodges, dwindling, fires the only barrier between them and the abyss of the cold. It was during such a season that one man, his name lost to time, found himself alone, separated from his kin by a blizzard that swallowed the world whole. Days passed, no food, no flame, no direction. His body froze, but worse, his soul fractured. Driven by desperation, he committed the unthinkable. When his brother's frozen form lay before him, he saw not love but meat. He consumed. And in that moment, the forest around him changed. The snow stopped falling. The air turned still. Something ancient and ravenous awoke. It did not punish him. It embraced him. The man did not die from his act his body endured, but something took root inside him. A hunger deeper than any famine. A yearning that would never fade. His skin stretched. His limbs elongated. His bones blackened like charred wood. His eyes turned hollow, swirling with shadow and frost. His lips shriveled, teeth sharpened to splinters. A crown of twisted antlers burst from his skull like a tree from rot, and just like that, he ceased to be a man. He became the first Wendigo. No two stories describe it exactly the same, for the Wendigo is not a creature of strict form, but of spiritual corruption. It wears the shape of what was once human, but exaggerated into horror. Some say it stands as tall as the trees, its limbs, too long, joints bent backwards, like a puppet of bone and frost. Its ribs poke through rotting skin like knives. Its mouth, perpetually open, reveals rows of blood-stained teeth that never close, for its hunger never ends. Others describe a creature that moves with a natural silence, eyes like burning coals, voice like dead leaves scraping across snow. But the one thing every telling agrees on, it is always starving, not for warmth, not for comfort, not even for sustenance. It hungers for flesh, yes, but it craves the moment before, the feast, the fear, the surrender, the collapse of a soul too cold to resist. What makes the Wendigo terrifying is not merely its appearance, but what it represents. It is not a beast that stalks the forest, leaving footprints in the snow. It is a curse, a spiritual infection, a darkness that waits in the wind for a soul to fracture, for a heart to break, for a man to feel the cold inside his bones, not just on them. The Wendigo does not always pounce. Sometimes it speaks. It whispers bargains to the broken. Eat, and you will survive. Take, and you will live. Hunger is natural, give in, but it lies. For the moment you say yes, it is already inside you, and the man who eats to live will live only to eat. Among the Algonquian, the story of the Wendigo is more than myth. It is a warning, a reflection of what becomes of us when we turn on each other, when we allow desperation to consume our values, when hunger becomes identity. The Wendigo reminds us that the greatest danger in the cold is not the snow or the storm. It is what you are willing to become to survive it. To this day, the forests of the north sing with wind and shadow. Travelers speak of unease, a presence in the trees. Rangers tell stories of footsteps that stop abruptly, of cries that mimic lost loved ones, of shapes that vanish into the white. Wendigo is not bound to one place. It lives where the frost is deepest, where hunger walks hand in hand with isolation. In every culture, there is a story like it, a mirror of human darkness. But here, in the heart of North America, where pine and snow reign eternal, it has a name: Wendigo. And if you ever hear it whispered on the wind, run. Chapter 2: The Lost and the Devoured. The Wendigo walks among us. The Wendigo is not a tale that stayed buried in the past. It did not vanish with the old tongues or die with the winter clans. No, it lingers. It infects the stories of today. Sometimes in whispers, sometimes in screams, and sometimes in court records. For those who think the Wendigo is merely myth, there are names, dates, places, cold, documented moments where reality bent, and something old stepped through. It was the winter of 1878. The Canadian plains were locked in bitter frost, and the cold reached deeper than ever before. Near Fort Saskatchewan, a Cree trapper named Swift Runner stumbled back into civilization alone. He was emaciated, frostbitten, but not entirely broken. Yet something in his eyes unsettled the local authorities. They asked what had happened to his family, his wife, 6 children, and his brother. The answer should have been a tragedy, a tale of starvation, a lament for lives lost. Instead, Swift Runner told them the truth. They were dead, and he had eaten them. At first, the townsfolk believed it was madness brought on by isolation, but Swift Runner had a different explanation. The Wendigo had come for him, not from the trees, but from within. It whispered when the hunger clawed at his insides. It urged when his firewood dwindled, and the silence became too loud. It offered a deal, and he accepted. When the Mounties arrived at his remote camp, they found bones, human bones, stripped, cracked, boiled, skulls tossed aside like scraps. It was not the camp of a grieving man. It was a feasting ground. Swift Runner was tried and hanged. But he never recanted. "It wasn't me," he said. To this day, his name marks one of the most disturbing real-life intersections of cannibalism and folklore. But for those who know the stories, it was more than madness. It was possession. Jack Fiddler, the shaman who hunted the curse. Not all feared the Wendigo. Some claimed to understand it, to fight it, to kill it. One of them was Jack Fiddler, a respected Cree elder and shaman born in the mid-1800s. He was known across northern tribes for his strange ability. He could kill a Wendigo, not just the beast itself, but the spirit. Jack claimed he could identify the early signs of Wendigo possession and end it before the transformation was complete. Sometimes this meant performing ceremonies. Other times it meant killing those who had begun to change. Over the course of his life, Jack confessed to ending 14 such lives. Not with hatred, but with sorrow. Many were his own people. Some were even family. But when Canadian authorities learned of these deaths, they saw no spiritual warfare. They saw murder. In 1907, Jack Fiddler and his brother were arrested and charged. The world of settlers and government had no space for the beliefs of the people who lived in the forests long before them. Jack escaped custody briefly, only to be found dead. Days later, having taken his own life, his brother died in prison, and with them, the knowledge of how to stop the Wendigo may have died too. But the Wendigo did not fade with Jack Fiddler. It only became harder to trace. The 20th century brought roads, towns, and conquer it, but the forest still waited, still watched. People began to vanish again, not in myth, but in headlines, trappers, hikers, whole hunting parties lost in the boreal wilds. In northern Ontario, Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin, stories echoed year after year, footprints too large for any man, claw marks 10 feet up pine trunks, voices calling for help in the exact voice of a missing friend. One search team near Lake of the Woods recalled a moment burned into their minds forever. They had been looking for a teenager who vanished from his cabin during a storm. His trail led to the tree line, then disappeared. As the group paused, they heard his voice clear, panicked, shouting their names from deeper in the woods. They followed it. They never found the boy. But they did find claw marks. And a deer skull, placed delicately in the center of the snow, balanced perfectly on a stone, still warm. Witness accounts vary, but there are patterns. Many speak of a tall figure, gaunt, pale-skinned or mottled grey, sometimes with matted fur. Antlers or horns twisted like roots, a smell of rot and winter. Glowing eyes, red, gold, or white, piercing from behind trees. Most disturbing are the voices. The Wendigo doesn't just hunt. It mimics. It calls out in the voice of a loved one, a child, a parent. It knows what you fear and what you long to hear. It weaponizes memory. That's how it lures the broken. In this way, it doesn't just feed on flesh. It feeds on grief. You see, the Wendigo is not a single entity. It is a curse, a hunger, a shape that despair wears. It waits in the snow, in the frost on your lips, in the moment you wonder if anyone will come to save you. And that is when it speaks. That is when it asks, what would you do to survive? And that is how it wins. Even now, there are rangers who won't patrol certain woods alone. Locals who won't camp past the first snowfall. Old families who still leave offerings at the edge of the forest oboko, fish, carved effigies, not out of superstition, but respect, not for what the Wendigo is, but for what it once was, for what it reveals about us. Chapter 3. The Cold Within, Becoming the Wendigo. The Wendigo is not just something that lurks in the trees. It lives deeper than that in the mind, in the marrow, in the soul's quiet surrender when all warmth is gone, because in truth, the Wendigo isn't always out there. Sometimes, it's already inside you. The curse of the Wendigo is not an infection of the body, it's a breach in the spirit, a gap that opens when desperation becomes stronger than reason, when hunger not just for food, but for survival, power, or vengeance, becomes too great. In that moment, it enters, not with claws, not with antlers, but with a whisper. It starts as a suggestion, a temptation that sounds like your own voice. "'Tis the only way. No one will know. You deserve to live more than they do." You'll tell yourself it's a choice. You'll tell yourself it's survival, but the Wendigo doesn't possess you. It waits for you to choose it. Today, the Wendigo is rarely seen as a literal monster. It's discussed in hushed tones on paranormal forums, dissected by folklorists and cryptid hunters, sketched by internet artists with glowing eyes and gnarled horns. But beyond the myths and sightings, psychologists have coined a name for it: Wendigo psychosis, a rare condition described among some First Nations groups, a state where a person, even when food is available, becomes obsessed with cannibalistic thoughts. They believe they are transforming, that they are losing themselves to hunger, that something is taking over. It is not just an illness of the mind, it is a cultural fear given form. Because deep down, the legend is a reflection of something painfully human, that sometimes we become monsters not by accident, but by decision. Even now, the stories continue. In 2015, two hikers disappeared in Alberta near Wood Buffalo National Park. Their last radio call mentioned a man in the trees. Search teams found their campsite torn open, food still cooking over the fire, but no signs of struggle, no blood, just deep footprints circling the tent, clawed, elongated, and far too far apart for any human stride. In 2020, a hunter in northern Quebec uploaded a series of chilling trail cam photos, blurry shots of a tall, thin figure naked, grey-skinned, with antlers and glowing eyes. The man deleted his account a week later. Local rumors say he left town and hasn't spoken a word since. Are these hoaxes, misidentifications, hallucinations? Or is the Wendigo simply evolving, no longer bound to wilderness, now seeping into the cracks of the modern world? The truth is, the Wendigo may never have been about the forest. It may have always been about us. It's about the price we're willing to pay when we're cornered. The moral lines we blur when survival, greed, or vengeance comes knocking, and, the terrifying thing, it doesn't always require a blizzard or starvation. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's envy, sometimes it's ambition, sometimes it's the refusal to stop consuming, no matter the cost. And when that happens, when we cross the line, even a little, the Wendigo smiles, because now, it's not a creature anymore, it's a mirror. But there is another version of the story. Some elders say that the Wendigo can be stopped not with bullets or fire, but with remembrance. They speak of rituals, of healing songs, of rejoining the land and listening to the old wisdom that once kept the balance between man and nature. They say the Wendigo only comes when we forget who we are, when we forget to share, to protect, to listen to the land instead of taking from it, that in remembering the stories, we keep the spirit at bay. One final story. An old man, Ojibwe, maybe Cree, maybe just a memory, told a story by firelight. The Wendigo wears your face, he said. It waits at the edge of your fire, not to pounce, but to be invited. It will wait until you take the first step, and when you do, it won't be the Wendigo who howls into the night, it will be you. That's the horror, isn't it? That we might not just fear the monster, we might become it. So now, when you hear branches crack at night, or the wind wail like a child's cry, when your campfire dies to fast, and the woods press into close, when you feel the cold not on your skin, but inside your chest, ask yourself, what would you do to survive? What line wouldn't you cross? Because the Wendigo waits for only one thing, not a scream, not a struggle, just a choice, and once you make it, it's already too late. Thus ends the tale of the Wendigo, a legend that began with snow and hunger, but finished deep in the modern soul. It was never just a monster. It was a reminder that the cold outside can be endured, but the cold within is where the real danger begins.